Hey everybody, welcome back to Play the Game HQ. I'm Daniel and this is Everbloom. It's from Nerdvana Games who helped sponsor this video, and it is on Kickstarter now. Now your eyes are not deceiving you. That lion does have flowers growing out of it, and that is not just an artistic choice, that builds into the lore of the game. So the game is set in the future when, after the world was close to dying, a magical dragon came in and created these flora and fauna hybrids. And our goal in the game is to attract those beings to our different biomes and then to attract pollinators to pollinate them and create nectar, which is ultimately how you're going to do most of your scoring in the game, is by having the most nectar in your biomes. Now the game mechanically is a mixture of bidding, area majority, and set collection, but there's a lot of nuance in the game when it comes to how you bid, what you bid on, and even into the control that you have with your scoring and how you're gonna go about scoring and kind of the order in which you're gonna choose your scoring abilities. Now, one really interesting thing about this game, as opposed to your standard area majority games where you're just trying to collect as many cards as you can, is you have to lose bids, you have to lose cards, because losing cards is how you're gonna get those pollinators that are ultimately gonna come and pollinate your cards and give you the nectar that will give you points at the end of the game. So if you just go all in on heavily bidding on a few cards so that you win all of them, you will have a very worthless tableau at the end of the game. So it's a balance of winning the cards that you need, strategically winning the cards that you want, and also strategically losing the cards that are going to give you a good set of pollinators to use later in the game. There's also a catch-up mechanism built into the tiebreakers, and the way that the tiebreakers resolve, it really prevents runaway players and becomes a pretty important strategic element in understanding and paying attention to ties and who's going to win the ties when they happen. And there's a specific order of resolving the board at the end of each round. So not only are you paying attention to if you're tying, but also where in the process you have those ties. Now let's look at what we have here. We have 8 cards out that we're going to be bidding on. The board is two-sided. You're going to have the same number of cards regardless of player count, but you are going to have more landmarks with a higher player count. And these are the landmarks. These tiles right here, we're going to be placing our tokens. And they do have some restrictions to them. There's a lot more in the game. You can randomize them. They have some setups that kind of work cohesively, but there are a lot more in the game. So there's a lot of variability in the game. I kept this out. This would normally be back in the box, but this is the stack of cards that aren't being used in the game. So I believe each set of animals, each habitat's deck of cards has 20, I believe. So there's just a lot of variability. There's a lot of things that you can do to change up how the game plays, and that's going to make minor adjustments from game to game that's going to keep you on your toes. So when you place a tile on the landmark, you have to make sure you're meeting the requirements. So this one can't have a 1 or a 2 on it. This one must match the round, so this has to be a 2 when you bid. And this one is, if it's a 2, you're going to get a bloom, and we'll talk about blooms in just a second, but that's a board. It's a track that's going to get you points and nectar cards. It's one of the many ways that you can score points during the game. So on your turn, you're going to place your token, and whatever number you place, you're going to place that many pollinators on any of the connected cards. All of the landmarks have arrows, and all of the central landmarks point to 4 different cards. So when you place on one of the central landmarks or the top landmarks, you can put pollinators on any of the 4 cards, and you can divide your pollinators between any of the connected cards unless a landmark has a restriction that tells you can't, like this one requires you to send all of your pollinators to one single card. Now what I have here is an almost complete second round. I have 1 token left to place, and in this scenario, I'm the 4th player. So I'm going to take my token and I will just put this right here, and then I get to place 4 pollinators on these 2 cards and these 2 cards and mix them up however I want. And I'm just going to go ahead and put all of my pollinators on that card so that I'll win that from green. Now, one little balancing element in the game is the first player does have an extra 1 token. Because going first is actually a disadvantage, you don't have control over what the other players play. And in this case, like, I was able to take that card as the last player, save my number 4 token for last, and have a lot of control over what I'm doing. So the first player does get 1 single token. It's the last token played, and it's just 1 pollinator. So we'll just say that blue is the first player. They're going to place that token there and put their pollinator right there to tie with green on that card. Now, once everyone has placed all of their tokens, you're going to move on to the migration phase, and we're going to resolve the board for the round. We're going to start with this landmark, and the landmarks, these 2 are special in that they give you a special ability depending on who has the most, the majority on those landmarks. Otherwise, the landmarks don't get resolved. It's only the cards and these 2 end landmarks. So For this one, we're gonna start and see who has the highest total token count on this card. So yellow wins that, and yellow can then choose to either take a wildlife card or take 2 blooms. So we'll say yellow is gonna take 2 blooms and move up 2 spaces on the bloom track. They went to a space that shows a nectar card, so they will get a nectar card. And this is just a single nectar that's going to go, it matches up with one of the biomes on your board, and this will just be for in-game scoring. So we'll set that aside for yellow, and then this token gets flipped, and whoever wins this one takes the other option. So both players can't get the same option. So yellow took the 2 bloom tokens, so whoever wins this one is gonna get 1 wildlife card. And then we go around and we just resolve all of these cards based on who has the most pollinators at each card. So we start and we go clockwise around the board. So I as red won this one because I had 3. This is a larger 3 token if you can't see that. So I had 3 pollinators. Yellow and green both had 2, but there is a shared bonus on this card. So anyone who matches the criteria of the shared bonus gets that. So if you had 2 pollinators on the card, then you get to send an extra pollinator. So because we all 3 meet the criteria for that card, we're all 3 gonna send a pollinator to the desert grove. Once you've resolved any shared abilities, the losers of the card are going to send their pollinators to the matching grove. So these are also gonna go to the desert grove. And because I won this card, I'm gonna take it and put it into the desert biome in my tableau. Now, when you place a card in one of the biomes for the first time, you're gonna choose the scoring condition for that biome. So I already had a card in the desert biome. So the scoring condition for any desert cards that go into my tableau is 1 point per pollinator that was on that card. So I had 3 pollinators, so I'm gonna get 3 points. And you're gonna score that every time you add a card to that biome. So later in this round, if I win another desert card, I'm gonna score again for however many pollinators I put on that card. So going around, I have 4 here to green's 3. This is not a shared ability. I just get 1 point for winning that. Green is gonna send their pollinators to the jungle biome, that's the pink. I'm gonna discard all of mine. And then I'm gonna put this in the jungle biome, and this is the first card I have here, so I'm gonna choose from one of my remaining scoring abilities to assign to the jungle biome for the rest of the game. I'm gonna go ahead and choose this one because I think this will be the most valuable right now. Other ones may be valuable later in the game, but this is 1 point for each biome in my tableau that has a card in it. Not for each card, just for each one that has a card. So this, because I have 3 biomes with cards, is gonna score me 3 more points. And that is, again, every time I place a card in that biome, it's gonna score those points based on how many I have. So once I fill that up, I'll score 5 points every time I place a card there. Going to the next card, we have a tie, and this is where the tiebreaker comes in. Now, we obviously don't have the other players set up, so we can't fully resolve that, but we can walk through how the tiebreaker works. The tiebreaker is a built-in catch-up mechanism in that the player who has the least cards in that biome in their tableau is going to win the tie. After that, it's whoever has the least points if there's still a tie there. And then if there's still a tie, it's whoever goes earliest in the turn order. But that really prevents one player from running away with it, where if the tiebreaker was whoever's winning gets it, the strongest player gets it, then one player could run away with ties. But there's a lot of times in our playing of this game that those ties become really crucial to building out your tableau and kind of forcing a tie when you know that you're going to take it from somebody, when you know that you are the weaker player, becomes really strategic because you don't have to actually win the card, you just need to tie. So you can be very picky with how you're placing your pollinators. So in this case, let's say blue won that tie. Blue would lose their pollinators, but they are going to get 1 because they won it on the yellow and the purple biomes. And then because this shows 2 biomes, green can choose where to put it. So we'll say green's gonna put it on purple. Now this one is empty. This is an event card. This is one of the ways that the game is kind of randomized each round. At the beginning of each round, you're going to flip over the event card, and that's gonna shift one of these sets of cards so that they're not always in the same place, because each stack of cards is the same biome. So having the event card shifted around means that you can't stack up and play the exact same way and play to the exact same set of cards and biomes every round. So it's just a little bit of a randomizing factor, but that's why this one is empty. And then we'll continue around clockwise, resolving the rest of the round, but I'm not gonna make you watch that. So we'll jump to the pollinator phase after I finish resolving the cards that are left on the board. So now that we've finished resolving the board, it's time to move on to the pollination phase. And this is where that strategic winning and losing really comes into play. So during the pollination phase, you're gonna pick one of these groves where you were placing your pollinators through the entire round You're going to pick one of those and you're going to take all of the pollinators from that grove and you're going to use those to pollinate your cards. Now, each card shows the pollination requirements at the top of it. So this one requires 3 pollinators to pollinate, this one requires 2, and this one requires 3. So I have the most pollinators in the desert biome, so I'm going to take those and I'm going to pollinate with 5 of my pollinators. Now I can pollinate both of these cards. I have 5, this requires 5. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over both of these cards. When you pollinate, you flip over the cards so that they're showing the nectar. And again, nectar is really the ultimate goal of the game, is gaining nectar, but strategically gaining it so that you'll win the biomes at the end of the game. So everyone is going to do that. They're going to take their pollinators from one grove. They're going to pollinate as many cards as they can with them. If you have any left over, you send all of your leftovers to a grove of your choice. You can't split them up between groves. You're going to send them to a grove of your choice, and most likely you're going to want to send them to the one that has the most, that you'll have the most flexibility the next round. Because again, it's only 3 rounds. You only have 3 opportunities to do that. So having the most pollinators in one place is really important so that you can pollinate as many cards as you can each round. Once everyone has pollinated their cards, you're going to reset the board. Now the landmarks do have a little bit of variability to them. At the end of each round, you're going to flip the highest and the lowest landmark, and that's going to change the requirements for that landmark just a little bit. So flipping over the 3, it goes from no 1 or 2 there to no 4 or 5 there. And then in the highest is the 21. And it goes from must match round to can't match round. So the next round, we won't be able to play a 3 there because it's going to be round 3. Then you're going to flip over all of those cards. You're going to reveal the event card and take your tokens back, and you'll be ready to go on the next round. The first player moves 1 player clockwise, and then you're going to start with the first player bidding, placing your pollinators, again, until you have all of your tokens placed. You're going to resolve the board again, just like we did at the end of round 2, and then it's going to go on to final scoring. So let's just imagine this is what my tableau looks like at the end of the 3rd round. We're ready to go into the pollination phase, and obviously I'm going to choose to pollinate from the aquatic biome because I have the most pollinators there. Now I have 7 pollinators, but I need 8 to pollinate everything, so I need to be strategic with how I pollinate. Obviously, I'm going to spend 2 to do this one because the scoring of each biome is based on who has the most nectar there. So I want to make sure that I at least score that one as much as I can. So there's 2. I'm going to flip that over. I'll go ahead and pollinate this one. That requires 3. And then I have 2 left over, and this one requires 3 also. So I'm just going to discard these because I can't pollinate all of those. Now, once everyone has finished their final pollination phase, it's time to score the game. And I did overlook one thing earlier in the game. We have the bloom cards. These 3 cards are going to switch out each round, and those are just objectives that if at any point in the round you meet those, you get to move up on the bloom track. So every time in this round you score a card in a new biome, you move up the bloom track once. Every time you pollinate an aquatic card, not win an aquatic card, but actually pollinate it, you're going to move up 2 on the bloom track. And again, those get switched out at the end of every round, so you're going to go through 9 total bloom cards in the game. Again, those are just another additional layer of scoring to move up on the bloom track. Now, once everyone has finished their final pollination phase, it's time to move on to the in-game scoring. The first thing you're going to do is reveal all of the nectar cards that you collected during the game, and you do get 2 of these at the beginning of the game, and these are just extra nectar for each biome that they match. So that's going to give me 1 extra nectar in the jungle biome, this is going to give me an extra nectar in the tundra biome, and this is going to give me an extra nectar in the aquatic biome. And for final scoring, you're going to start on the leftmost biome and score each biome individually. And when you score, you're going to look at who has the most nectar in each of those biomes. And that person is going to score the full value of their nectar. So whoever has the most is going to score 1 point per nectar. Second place is going to score 1 point for every 2 nectar, so half their value. And third place and fourth place are going to score 1 point for every 3 nectar, so they're going to score a third of the value. And that is rounded down. So if you only have 2 nectar in one of your biomes, you're going to score 0 points for that biome if you come in 3rd or 4th place. So we're going to start with the forest biome. I have no cards there, so obviously I'm not going to score any points for that. In addition to not scoring any points, I'm actually going to lose 5 points because if you don't place a card there and cover up that -5 with a scoring token, you're going to lose 5 points at the end of the game. But that may be strategically better to stack up cards in other biomes and choose to take that -5 in order to win some of those other biomes. So over here in the desert, I have 7, and let's assume that I won the desert. I'm going to get 7 points because I get 1 for each nectar, so that's going to move me up to 32 points. And then here in the aquatic biome, I have 4. Let's say I came in 2nd place. That's going to be 1 point for each 2 nectar, moving me up 2 points. And same thing for the tundra biome. I had 5. Let's assume I came in 2nd. So I'm going to get 1 point for every 2 rounded down. So even though I have 5, I'm still only going to score 2 points for that. And then here in the jungle biome, I have 1 nectar. We'll assume I came in 3rd place. So even though I have a nectar there, I'm not going to score any points because it is rounded down. And for the bloom track at the end of the game, you're going to score for the highest scoring space that you're either on or past if you're in between spaces. So for red, I was on 3, so I'd get an additional 3 points. And then at the end of the game, the player with the highest score is going to win the game. So mechanically, it's a very straightforward game. You're going to bid on cards with your tokens. You're going to place your pollinators. Winners are going to get the cards in their tableau. Losers are going to put their pollinators into the different groves to then use later to pollinate. But there's so much nuance in the game in forcing ties where you need them, also in focusing on which cards you lose. Because you can only take pollinators from 1 grove per round, you have to make sure that you get enough pollinators into the groves to actually be able to pollinate your cards. You have 10 pollinators going out per round. If you move 2 pollinators to each of the groves, you're not going to have enough pollinators to effectively pollinate your cards. So you really have to focus on which pollinators you lose so that you can get them strategically all into 1 or 2 different groves so you can pollinate effectively at the end of the round. One thing we also didn't talk about is each player has minor variable. It's not fully asymmetric play, but each player or each faction does have a little bit of variable player powers. So with the butterflies, when you place your 4, you can move a pollinator from 1 card to another. With the lizards, the 4 chip is replaced with a 5 chip. There's some minor variability in players that are going to make it a little bit different and again, give you a little strategic edge or a little strategic decision making depending on which faction you choose to play with. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it gave you a good look at the gameplay and kind of a peek into the strategy. There's a lot there in the strategy and there's a lot to the gameplay just that you're only going to experience by playing it. But again, there's a lot of nuance there. If you have any questions, be sure to leave me a comment below and I'll answer those as quick as I can. We'll also leave a link to the Kickstarter below so you can find that and check this game out over there. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later. Bye.